Hey everybody, it's Jackie with Jackie's Recent Things. How are y'all doing today? Let us zoom in. Today we're going to be making a wreath with the Unique in the Creek oval board. Flip it over so you can see how my ties are placed. They are every other. Hold it there so you can get your screenshot. There are 10 ties on the outside and 10 on the inside. We're going to be using this cute little snowman from Pizzazz Wreaths. You can look her up on Facebook. Let's get started. So I've already cut the mesh. We're going to use 10-inch mesh, and I cut it 30 inches long because we are just going to do ruffles on this wreath. So let's go ahead and open our ties. And get started. So what I did, instead of trying to match this blue up, I decided I wanted to use the shades of blue so my wreath attachment would stand out. So when you use shades of blue, remember blue is blue and it's just different shades, and believe it or not, they all match. So I'm going to do what I would call using the shades of winter blues is what we'll call it. Because I'm using value mesh, it's the reason I cut it 30 inches. It needs a little bit more pick me up. And the reason I'm turning it in, rolling my mesh up, is because it is value mesh. So it'll keep it from fraying. I kind of like the way that value mesh ruffles. It kind of looks more like a tutu. A little bit more delicate, gives it a different appearance as well. And it will take 2 rolls of mesh. If you had a good quality mesh, you could probably cut your mesh 15 inches and ruffle it to get all the way around. And if you wanted to, because it's flat frame, you could even pull your mesh all the way forward like this. To fill it out a little bit more. Now I've already cut the ribbon, and we're going to be adding the ribbon to the outside before we go to the center. When you're doing ruffles, it's just easier on a flat frame to go ahead and add the ribbon first. That way you're not digging your tie out. So once again, I'm going to pull the black in with some Harlequin, and then I've got some nice snowball edge ribbon and some black and white stripe with some snowflakes that I have picked out. I've cut these 14 inches. The reason I cut these 14 inches for this particular one, even though when you do ruffles you only need 12 inches, is because the attachment's so large. So I need the wreath to be a little bit larger in appearance. Now, because the wreath attachment is so large, I went ahead and cut ribbon for the inside, but I'm going to place my wreath attachment on it before I place that ribbon. For this particular wreath attachment, with it being so large, we may not need to add that ribbon on the inside. But to save time, I went ahead and cut it. I can always use it somewhere else later on. So next I'm going to put flex tube in, and with the flex tube I brought in a couple more shades of the blue to really hit the different shades. I've kind of found that if I can't find the exact ribbon that I like that kind of coordinates better with the wreath attachment, to just use shades other than what's in the wreath attachment, and just to, you know, just stay away from it. And in this case, we're going to go with lighter shades and not darker. The flex tube that I have, we're going to go ahead and add it also. I cut it 26 inches, and we're just going to put the two open edges together and make some bows and tie those in. Now that I'm done tying things in, I'm going to take my ties because I don't want them snagging on my ruffles, and I'm just going to make sure that they lay kind of flat. And out of the way. I love how flex tube looks. All right, last piece of flex tube, and then we're going to move to the center. All right, so let's open our ties. Now the ties in the center are closer together. They're about 4 inches apart. And once again with a nice ruffled look. I'm going to adjust my ties, and let me tell you why. I put the ties more toward the inside, but I'm not liking the appearance, so I want to pull them more toward the outside. You'll see the difference here in a minute. Because you can kind of either tie your tie more this way or more that way or to the center. I want more this way. So some of the mesh will come out a little bit further. And then instead of redoing every time, I'm just going to pull my mesh, my tie back this way. Since this wreath attachment is so large, if you want to really save on materials when using a large wreath attachment, you can do just one row and go right here down the center. Right here. Let me show you. Just use right here down the center. Just use those ties every other. And that'll help you save on materials. Like I said, when we're done putting the mesh around, I'm going to set the wreath attachment down and see if we even need to put ribbon on the inside. All right, let's see here. Yes and no, we're going to go ahead and put the ribbon. I can tell from looking at it, if we would have gone right here with the mesh and ribbon, you can just have one row of ribbon. If you go in that spot that I suggested. So you can do that with the large wreath attachment for sure. I'm just going to go every other on top and use the same ribbon, because we cut the ribbon 14 inches and it will stretch out so far that it'll cover it. So since that'll only be 5 ties and I'm putting ribbon in on the top, I'll use all the same ribbon. And as you can see, that will be plenty of ribbon on the top. Now, if you wanted to, you could just put one ribbon in each tie, have them overlapping, really stand out on the top. Because when you cut them 14 inches, because the ties are only 4 inches apart, using all the ties. It's just, it's like, it would really be too much ribbon. And that's hard for me to say, right? What? Jackie said too much ribbon? Yes, yes. Yes, I did. See, that's gonna look cute. Alright, so what we're gonna do before I add the wreath attachment, in this case, because we went every other tie, I want to go ahead and tie in the picks that I picked out for this project. That way I don't have to go fishing under my Snowman to do that later. So I got some nice little white snowy picks to do that. So we're just going to need 5 of those to tie in. 1, 2, 3. I'll save that for something else. 4, 5. So we're going to take and tie these into the areas right here where we don't have the ribbon. I'm going to cut that a little bit shorter. Typically what I do is I hook my tie around a leaf. That way it doesn't slide out. I want that to stick out longer. I'll cut another one. I want that more out here. So what I'll do is, because I didn't hook it in the way I normally would, I'll come back later on and I will anchor that in with hot glue. Alright, now I'm going to pull my ties back and let's get our wreath attachment on. Once again, the wreath attachment is from Pizzazz Wreath. She has all kinds of different wreath attachments that she makes. Check her out. So she puts the ties on it So let's make sure we got the top of our wreath. So the hanger is on this side. So I'm going to put him kind of high into the wreath so we can add a bow. So I'm going to get my handy dandy yarn needle out. Go after my first tie. And the other one's just going to go to the inside of the wreath. I don't want to flatten on the wreath, but kind of what I'm doing. And like I said, because we're going to put a bow on, I put him kind of high into the wreath, which is fine. Miss Sandra, make sure that you have enough pipe cleaner to get to where you're going. Up and through with my hook. And we'll get our little snowman nested in. And then the excess pipe cleaner, I'm just going to take and poke it back up through the frame. Sometimes you might have to cut a little extra off. Alright. So this is actually just this is a fine stopping point, but I'm just going to tell you, when you buy expensive wreath attachments, you probably don't want to do that. Okay. This wreath attachment is about $75. So you need to really try hard to give your wreath the appearance of at least $150 wreath. Okay. So I'm going to straighten out my ribbons here so we can keep going. I like fixing my ribbons because that's part of my design. So when you're designing something, your ribbons are a part of it. And I always think about that. So I want my ribbons and my shape always to where I can see exactly what's going on while I'm creating. So let's get our bow made. pull this over here. Some pipe cleaners out. Once again, with my bow, I have pulled in the highs and some lows of the blue, but I've avoided the darker navy blue that is then the Wreath attachment, so he will stick out. So here's what I've chosen. This blue that I have gets the closest, but it isn't. It's still just a little bit brighter. We got some snowflakes, pull our harlequin in, a little bit wider stripe, and our snow. So I'm going to do a 7-inch loop so that I have a nice size bow. And I'm going to do something a little bit different. Even though he has on a scarf, when I'm kind of done, I want him to look like he has a bow tie on. So I'm going to make my next ribbons, the next ribbon that I use, a little bit shorter than what I normally do, to give it that kind of bow tie effect that I'm looking for with my bow. Ooh, glitter everywhere. Everywhere. All right. So I'm going to come in probably about 1.5 inches so that my blue ribbon really stands out as a bow tie. So I'm going to kind of double check that, pull my bow, just to make sure that I'm really getting the effect that I want and that my ribbon's far enough in, and it is. This is really nice, just a netting ribbon. I kind of like these for winter and Christmas. They have a very light, airy appearance. I was going to use this, but I think I want my black to be a little bit thinner. So I'm going to grab the 1.5 instead. So the reason I am not going to add much ribbon to this bow is because, like I said, I'm wanting it to look more like a bow tie. So I'm going to want this ribbon to flatten out a little bit. I'm not going to want it to be as fluffy as I would typically make a bow. because the more ribbon you have, the more it rounds up and the fluffier it is. And then we're going to come in with the solid blue with the snowdrift. Because I really don't want the black to be the center point because it's just so dark to navy blue. And believe it or not, folks, two of the colors I can't really stand together are black and navy blue. Just not my thing. But sometimes when we make things, it's not always about us and what we like. Some people love black and navy blue together. Some people ate that trend alive. Come here, Mr. Snowman. Anybody else ever talk to their wreath attachments like they're alive? Just me? Okay. Alright, so first I'm going to go through the center of the board. And then I'll pull out my nice little tool that I threw on my table somewhere. Well, I threw it on the table somewhere. So we're just gonna, nope, I need my tool. That's off here on my table somewhere. There it is. Woo, thank goodness, because we needed it. We needed it. The reason I needed it is because I'm going through a hole that's already got stuff in it and trying to feed that pipe cleaner through that hole. Well, thank you. Y'all have better things to do. Alright. I'm going to put that back in my drawer in case I need it again so I can find it. That thing's too small and goes scurrying off. Secure my bow in, and once again I'm just going to take the leftover pipe cleaners and poke them back through a hole to keep the back all nice and clean. Right. And now we're going to go fluffing. Like I said, we want to give that kind of like a little bit of a bow tie appearance here. Now, I didn't really want to cover up his scarf, so that's what other reason I used less ribbon for this. But I am going to cover it up a little bit as I fluff my bow out. Because once again, I'm trying to keep that blue front and center for the bow tie appearance that I'm trying to go for here. So these little tails, I'm going to cut them down just a little bit shorter so they don't stick out like that above Frosty. There we go. And I'm going to shorten this tail up just a wee bit. There we go. So now we kind of have our bow tie appearance. I have some little pine cones to put with Frosty. This pick I got at my local Trees and Trends. Every year I go when they're having their clearance, and that's when I stock up on stuff to use for the following year. This little bit of bling will help give it a more wintry appearance here with Frosty. We'll go one up here at the top. I'm going to bend that up so it doesn't smash my ribbon. It kind of almost looks like those Christmas bulb ornaments. Y'all know what I mean? I think we'll tilt that one up a little bit and over, because I'm trying to give like a little bit of equal distance between these. There we go. See? There we go. Then we also have some snowflakes. But before I put the snowflakes in, I want to bring some of the flex tube back into this. Up to the top. And I'm just going to put it in a couple places to give it that little extra something. Just to kind of really make this over the top. People won't, at face value, recognize the value of the wreath attachment. Wreath makers will, but buyers won't. So for them, they need to see more stuff. They need to see more, and more. Okay, always before you're finished, you kind of want to go back and look and make sure all your colors are balanced, all your goodies are balanced. You know, what's going on? Is there anything that you can do to make it look better? Add anything else to add to appearance value, maybe a little something to it. So I'm just going to tell you from what I see. I'm not seeing the white that I put in. So we're going to relocate it. The ribbon and everything ended up covering it up. That's fine. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to pull it out, so I'm glad I didn't glue it in. And we're going to go right here and add it out here so that it will be seen. I'm going to pull it up a bit so it's not smashing my ribbons. So now it can be seen. See, that gives a much better appearance. So definitely look at those things before you say, well, I'm done. Now the other ones are under the bow, so we're just going to leave those there instead of going digging for those. Maybe if it was easier to get to, but it kind of isn't. And now we got some snowflakes. I think I'm going to kind of pull those off the stick because they come right off the stick anyway. There's a little neck around these that makes these pretty easy to tie in. And that's what I was afraid of. Those break. That's what I was afraid of. These are actually pretty, they're not very pliable plastic. They have some that are made out of styrofoam. I recommend using those instead. I want to add a little bit more white to the outside. Don't worry, folks, I always have a backup plan. We're going to use some snowy, wintry sticks. Some twiggies. And I'm going to fold a couple of those in there where I want them, and then I'm just going to tuck the twig in. Cut all that excess off. Once you get done putting stuff in on the bottom, you got to push your top back down to where it goes. That's the downside to working with flat wreath frames. But the upside is they save money on shipping. I get these branches at Walmart every year. They have them that are flocked. These are glittered. Isn't that so cute, y'all? He loves him. Me loves him. I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial. I hope y'all learned a lot. I gave several different examples of things that you can do with these wreath forms for yourself. You can just do so much. Like you can use just the one layer with a large wreath attachment like that. You can keep going further and further. You can even go one more step on this one if you want to. I'll show you before we head out of here. Because there, you may not be able to see it, but I can see it on my side. There are some gaps. So I kind of want to fill those gaps. Gaps bother Jackie. We all know that gaps bother Jackie. I'm just trying to decide which color I'm going to use to fill the gap. I think we need a little bit more snowflake. So this is 2.5. I'm going to cut it 24 inches, I think. This is what is kind of called the Jackie bow. Because before I could make bows, I used this in my wreaths. I'm just going to kind of pull my flex tubing on top of it, though. I don't want my flex tubing to hide out on the underneath. There we go. And that will fill the nice little gaps that are kind of bothering me. I used to do this quite a bit, especially Sam's Club ribbon, because it was so inexpensive. This is actually something that you can do too with your not so great ribbon. You can use it like this, and you're kind of like using it almost like flex tube. Uh-oh. Chica's fired up, y'all. And that adds the perfect, just the perfect little bit more touch that it needed. To give it that just a little bit more fullness that it was kind of lacking a little bit. Because that really fluffs it up, especially with a flat frame. And I'll show you, I'll hold it up and turn it up on the side for you. So you can see that that little bit, even though it's flat, essentially, it adds that just a little bit more depth that it needed. I hope that y'all enjoyed this very, very much. I love him. I think it turned out amazing. I'm in love with this new oval frame from Unique in the Creek. I hope that y'all are going to have fun creating on it as well. Y'all have a great day. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Bye.